So obviously the title of this talk initially is The Path to UBI. You've just laid out the case of like fundamentally to get something done that the majority of American people want, you need this core structural reform. Yep. You've now just laid out that core structural reform. If that happened, do you think we'd get a UBI?
We'd sure as heck get an enhanced child tax credit because like 80% of Americans are for that. You know, if you lay out, it's like, hey, poor kids, like, want to give them some money? Data shows it's great. 120 economists signed a letter saying we should keep doing this. And people are like, yeah, that sounds great. And, you know, even the majority of legislators, I'm going to suggest, would get on board with that. And as we start putting stones in the stream, I think we can keep moving towards a society where poverty is alleviated. Because poverty to me is the most solvable of the major problems we have, truly. And here's my, and I'm going to level with you all. We're going to veer towards either utopia or dystopia pretty quickly. We're going to veer towards either Star Trek or Mad Max. And so if you want to lay out the path to Star Trek, I used to think, hey, UBI, and then I'm like, okay, it turns out that I got to fix our messed up political system. So structural reforms that make it so that what we want actually happens, and then alleviate poverty at scale. And then if you alleviate poverty, then you have a chance at easing some of the other problems. Because I genuinely think poverty is driving a lot of the other stuff. Poverty is driving hate, scarcity, violence, mental illness. It's not a cure-all. I mean, it's not like, hey, I give you money, it all goes away. But in the absence of any sort of financial security, it's going to be impossible to solve other problems. And one of the examples I use in my book, The War on Normal People, which is out there, is if you look at communities that lost their industrial job base, all the social ills come right in behind it. You know what I mean? Like as soon as you get rid of the jobs, like abuse goes up, violence goes up, the rest, like everything. And I'm going to suggest that we're experiencing a version of that right now in the U.S. writ large.
I mean, you were obviously very prescient. We spent the 2020 election cycle talking about automation and AI and its risks, and calling for universal basic income as your case for it was really around that story, which now is playing out, and now many more people are woken up to the idea of automation and what's going to happen. Is anything about the AI story playing out differently than you anticipated?
Oh yeah, I mean it's faster than I thought it was going to be. I did not see ChatGPT 4 being this powerful this quick. My book talks about truck driving as a job that could be replaced. It turns out that a lot of knowledge work is going to get replaced well before truck driving. So I had the sequence wrong somewhat. So that to the extent that I missed, it's that I didn't realize how quickly it was going to be upon us. And just today I saw this use case where they replaced 700 workers with a bot and saved $38 million and drove customer service calls from 10 minutes to 2 minutes. So everyone won except the 700 people that used to work there.
And is universal basic income to you is still the best thing we can do, understanding that we can't, like, people used to always ask you, well, what about the meaning that work provides? And you're like, yeah, that's a tough one. Like, I don't know what to tell you about that.
What I say is that, look, I'm someone who believes very deeply that people need structure, purpose, fulfillment, community, and that we work for a multitude of reasons, not just to pay the bills. But having these things connected is a win. And it breaks my heart to think about the prosperity we've squandered over this last number of years. So I'll give you guys some numbers. Like, economy's 24 trillion, government's 4 trillion, where our debt now is at, let's call it 35 trillion and rising quick. I think it's around 37. And we have had the global reserve currency for quite some time. We could have done a lot with this last number of years. And what's happened in real life, when I was running even, people were like, oh, can we do that? Can we do that? And then like they thought it was like fanciful that we could actually send Americans money at scale. They'd say, oh, like, can we afford it? Like, can we actually do that? And then when COVID hit, we produced trillions of dollars very quickly. Just as we did, frankly, when Wall Street collapsed. It's like when Wall Street got into trouble, then we found 1.8 trillion pretty quick. And then COVID, we produced several $1 trillion. And people blame the relief checks for inflation.
I was going to bring this up.
And be like, oh, UBI doesn't work, relief checks don't work, it drove inflation. And then so I want to present the math to you all. So there are let's call it 300 million Americans, a little higher, 340, something along those lines. We printed enough to give every American approximately $15,000 during COVID. But none of you got $15,000. How much did you get? Like 1,200 maybe? So hang on, let me make sure I got this math right. So we got about 15% of what, so it might not be that we all get 15,000. Let me do this quick. Let's say we printed 4,340,000,000, maybe 11,000. There was enough to give us each 11,000, and then we got maybe 10% of that or something like that. So the rest of the money got pumped into the financial system and major corporates and state and local governments, which I don't hate. But there were a bunch of things that we did. And then people say, oh, inflation. It's like, actually, the inflation came from the fact that we just juiced the entire financial system to the tune of trillions of dollars. And some of that came to us in the form of these relief checks, but it was a very, very small sliver. It was maybe 15, 16, 17%. Like, what really happened is that we, again, squandered our bounty on institutions and not people. Because I think we've been scared this whole time, because people would say to me all the time, it's not possible, not possible. It's like, oh, it's been possible. But unfortunately, we've reached a point where we're genuinely in a bit of an uncharted ground where, owing 37 trillion and having your interest rates go up and like having this inflationary stuff, it's going to be an environment where you're going to see like the federal government is going to start freaking out about its spending in various ways. And it breaks my heart because we had opportunities this whole time, but we may have reached a point where like it gets harder. And now the case I'd make too, because a lot of people who were previously open to UBI now are not into UBI because of the reasons I just named. Like they're scared of inflation, they're scared of the deficit, they're scared of a whole bunch of things. And so the case I'm going to make to you all is that we have to do something quick, as soon as we can, because we're going to lose the capital efficiency foot race to technology increasingly. We already are losing. And AI is going to get leaps and bounds better, and we're going to be fortunate to stay the same. I'm middle-aged. I'm fortunate not to decline in any given. Like I'm not expecting to get 10 times better. But like AI is going to get 10 times better. And so the trap that we're in is that everyone's going to get brainwashed into thinking, okay, you have to be adaptable. You have to be like, you have to be like an efficient market actor, and like if you can just do that, then you're going to be okay. No, and even if it's true for the people in this auditorium, it's certainly not going to be true for a huge mass of the hundreds of millions of Americans right now who are like on the edge. Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Please do hit like and subscribe and hit that bell if you want to be notified every time a new episode drops. Thank you.